Welcome to the PTSD podcast with your host, comedian and military veteran, Bernard the Laugh Therapist Hines, where we discuss PTSD, processing traumatic situations differently, and give you tools to help you overcome the stigma of seeking help. If you're ready to be inspired, then welcome to the Stigma-Free Zone. Here's your host, the Laugh Therapist himself, Bernard Hines.
What up, good people? What up, good people? Hey, it's your boy, Bernard Hines, a.k.a. the Laugh Therapist, and welcome to the PTSD Processing Traumatic Situations Differently podcast. Here, we try to inform, enlighten, and become advocates for one another as we learn more productive ways to process our trauma. Always remember, as a therapist, I am not licensed, I'm just medicated. Welcome to the Stigma-Free Zone. What up, good people? How are y'all doing? Wherever you are listening to this video, wherever you are listening to this podcast, we want to say welcome and thank you for tuning in. Today, I have a great guest that I met 2 years ago. Great young lady. Well, right now, I'm just going to bring her onto the screen. We're going to put your hands together for Miss Ashton Kroner. Come on, Ash. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you, Bernard?
I am doing well. Thank you for being my guest on today. We met at MIC. We met at MIC 2023.
In Vegas, yes.
In Vegas, yes. Yes, and evidently I was on the stage and I was speaking, and evidently I said something that really she liked, and then she caught me off stage, and it was like, wow. And it has been a great friendship, a great mutual respect for one another for what she does. And I want to just thank you for being on the podcast with me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And first, before we go any further, being from Jacksonville, how are y'all doing down there with the weather and everything?
Oh, we're doing good. We weren't impacted, either by Hurricane Helene or Hurricane. What is it, the last one?
Yeah.
But they all end up coming together. But no, we had a little bit of wind and otherwise, but we're good. Other parts of Florida though, they could use some thoughts and prayers. So they could definitely use it.
All right. Well, thank you I'm glad that you are doing okay. But right now, we're going to jump right into this interview. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my gosh, where to start?
Ah.
So first and foremost, I like to always sit there and start off saying that I am a proud mom and wife. I have two beautiful children, a girl and a boy. One I adopted whenever I was in the military. I served 8 years in the Marine Corps. Okay. And then I have a 9-year-old son. My husband and I, we've been together for, oh gosh, he's gonna sit there and laugh at me. I can never. First of all, I got a TBI, so my days.
There you go. That's right.
But we got married in 2010. We met in the military, and it's just been a whirlwind adventure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're gonna jump into it and hear all about it. So, what made you join Semper Fi, the Marine Corps?
Oh. So it's actually a funny story. So whenever I was a kid, for Christmas, my parents got me one of those box TVs that had the VCR built in and everything. And so I'd stayed up way too late watching television one night, and the commercial comes on. It was the Dragon commercial, and I just thought it was of the Marines, like sitting there battling, going up the mountain. I was like, that is so cool. And then right after that was actually the Army commercial, and it was in the military uniform. I know exactly. And they were like going over obstacles, and me being the 7-8-year-old kid that I was at the time, I was like, grown-ups get to play on the jungle gym for a living, and I was like, I want to do that.
Right.
So of course I go running into my parents' room, and I'm like, Mom, I'm going to join the military. And of course it was like 11 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And she was like, what? So first of all, I shouldn't have been watching TV. So I got my little butt whooped for that.
Unsupervised. Yeah,
absolutely. But she comes back into my room, and on was Jerry Springer, who actually is a Marine as well. So I ended up getting in trouble for that as well. Got my TV taken away, but that kind of just set it in stone for me. I knew that I was going to join the military that day, actually.
Wow. And how many deployments did you do?
So yeah, great question. So I was actually a gymnast growing up. I was always really, had some great arm strength and everything. But the most that I was able to do in one sitting actually was 26. So I've always been able to do, like any upper arm strength, and I just attribute that to me being a gymnast. If I didn't do pull-ups, I'm pretty sure I would have been a disappointment to my coaches.
Right.
Yeah.
So how many deployments did you have?
So I had 2 deployments,
Okay.
Iraq and Afghanistan.
Wow. And while you was over there, you said you spoke about it earlier that you suffered a TBI, traumatic brain injury.
Yeah, so I've actually had 4 documented TBIs, 2 prior to the military, 2 after, or 2 while I was in the military as well. So my most significant one was actually from a horse-related injury. It was very common in equine accidents. And so, it kind of, almost ended up delaying me into the military in the first place, due to that. But my 2 that I had in the military were actually training accidents, which is very, very common. I always sit there and say, and you'll hear a lot of the SOF operators as well sit there and say that we train too real sometimes, and that's where training accidents end up occurring. So,
wow.
But yeah, I've had 4 over the period of my life. Not to mention, all those fun activities that we do in the military that kind of knock us around sometimes. So I think quite a few of us, just throughout our lives have all kind of sustained some sort of brain injury.
Correct. Wow. And then after you did, how many years did you do in the Marine Corps?
So I served 8 years. I actually ended on recruiting duty. That one kind of sucked my soul a little bit.
Right.
I wanted to sit there and spend more time with the family, but I did a full 8 years. 5 in the fleet and then 3 in the as a recruiter.
Wow, that is well. Thank you for your service. Those 8 years, I tell everybody, however many years you did, days, it all counts.
Absolutely, I agree.
So how was your transitioning from the military to civilian life? How was that for you?
I thought I was going to be some hot shot getting out of the military and going to make 6 figures because I'm a Marine. That is what I thought. And then reality hit. Because first of all, I got out of the military. My husband and we had purchased a home in North Carolina, Jacksonville, North Carolina, actually.
Okay.
So we decided to move back to our home, get the renters out, and just go ahead and make a home there. And come to find out that there's a thing called a degree that a lot of employers want, or a plan or something. But me being me, I was like, I served 8 years in the Marine Corps.
Come on now.
I served my country.
That's right.
I was a recruiter. I can sell anything except for a used car. I cannot sell a used car.
Okay.
But yeah, so I will say I struggled. I didn't use any of the programs. I didn't know what a nonprofit was actually. I mean, I had spent so much time just in the government that they don't really talk a lot about nonprofits. And so I think that if I had become a little bit more aware, actually utilize the exit programs, and actually listen to them, I think I probably wouldn't have struggled as hard. But when we moved to Jacksonville, North Carolina, I was sitting there applying for jobs left, right, and center. And my very first job actually was a used car salesman. And I think I lasted about 2 months at that one. And I realized I was terrible at it.
Hold up. You went from the Marines to used car.
It was awful. It was absolutely, I learned a lot about cars that I never would have thought,
Okay.
Most cute used car sales lots, by the way, they have the battery jumpers. So we'd sit there and go out, start all the vehicles to make sure that they would even start
with people.
Yes. So that was my job for the first couple of weeks, is just turning on all the cars. And then I would go and get the battery jumper and jump all the ones, and then have it running for a little bit. And as soon as somebody would come through, we'd all sit there and be like, oh, my dibs, my person. And I think I made 1 sale the entire 2 months that I was there. And I was like, this ain't it. I got bills to pay, I got mouths to feed. So I was like, I gotta do something. So I went back to the realtor that I actually purchased my home from. And, she had said that they just had an opening as a property management inspector. And I didn't know, I had owned a home.
Correct.
And so they gave me some training. I was the person when people were leaving the rental properties, I would go in and take pictures and then basically say, hey, this is all the damage that I have.
Okay.
Oh goodness. That was a hard job.
Yeah.
I came home covered in fleas, and I was like, because, people wouldn't, they had their dogs and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, I can't be doing this. So my husband and we talked together. I was like, we've got to do a change. So I enrolled in school, I started going back for my degree. And then we were still struggling to make ends meet. I was making $8.50 an hour, it was, and I had I had my brother living with us, I had, obviously our 2 kids and my husband. $8.50 an hour is,
Now,
I mean,
yeah,
that's
not
not
gonna cut it.
sustainable. So we were on
Correct.
food stamps, like it was hard. So I was like, I'm going to start mass applying all over the US. Somebody has to want somebody with my skill set. And so it brought
So
me
you was
over.
proactive. So you was proactive.
I was, yeah, I
There
was
you go.
definitely proactive there. I mean, you
Okay.
have to. I mean, I'm a hustler. I was a
Correct.
recruiter. That recruiter in me, and you gotta sit there and make things. I mean, failure is not an option. So,
Correct.
yeah. So I started, started mass applying, and I actually ended up getting picked up by a medical device company, and I was their corporate recruiter. Ended up getting promoted to director of recruiting, and started realizing that, there was some things kind of going on, internally. I was like, what is going on with me? I was like, I'm getting angry all the time. I wasn't sure what was going on. But what I started realizing that it was impacting my family, my home life. So, I was like, there's something going on. My oldest daughter, she's 20 now, but she started having some, mental health, struggles as well. And I was like, all right, I think maybe I might be part of the problem. My husband and I, we both went to therapy. My daughter was in therapy, and I was like, we got to figure something out. So, I mean, business wise, successfully, man, I was up here. I was doing great. I was traveling the US. I was sitting there going and making deals. I mean, I was doing amazing. But then at home, I was struggling. I didn't want to be at home because I was like, there's something going on. So, got into therapy, started feeling a little bit better. But, I was focusing so much on work. That was my outlet. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the success. I enjoyed being able to, go and meet new people and help grow the business. But at home, things were just, unraveling.
So at this time, were you in Jacksonville, or had you already transitioned to Illinois?
So I was in Illinois. So I moved to, Crystal Lake, which is one of the suburbs of the Chicago area. And, it was beautiful. I mean, I had never lived in Illinois. I'd never thought about going to Illinois, but, I'm all up for an adventure. So why not?
Correct.
And we ended up, spending about 2 years at that company, that I was at with my family, just struggling, knowing something was wrong. And so I actually started getting headhunted by Rush University Medical Center. They had a program called the Road Home Program, and I had never heard of it. I thought nonprofits were scams,
Oh, wow.
And come to find out, I was going to make a career into nonprofits because I had my previous boss. He recruited me. He had been recruiting me for about a year to come work for him, and he was telling me about this PTSD program that they treat any era, any discharge status, and regardless if you can pay. And that part, I was like, what do you mean? I was like, we got the VA. It's mediocre, but we got the VA. I mean, I'm kidding. The VA is great. I love my doctors at the VA, but but at that time I was just, like I said, I was just at a bad place. And so, he finally convinced me to come work at the Road Home Program. And I think that is where everything started kind of, balancing in my life, because it was a mental health organization. So I'd be going talking to my colleagues, and they'd be like, Ashton, have you thought about trying, mindfulness? And I'm like, mindfulness? And they're sitting there teaching me how to breathe. And I was like, I've been doing this really, really well all my life. But, I'm doing it wrong. Right.
Right.
So, but yeah, things started improving, and we had a bit of a family issue at that time. My husband, ended up getting cancer. So, I mean,
2021. Yeah. Okay.
But, at that point in my life, I mean, I've been, again, focusing so much on my career, but, I have my mental health providers, through the VA.
Correct.
And I have my colleagues that were all mental health providers. And so I felt like, finally felt like something was happening. And of course, as my mental health is improving, I'm always about Murphy's Law. Something will go wrong at, some point in your life to sit there and test you. I'm a person of faith. And so I think that, it's important to have these tests in your life to, make sure that you're on the straight and narrow. And so my husband actually ended up getting testicular cancer, and it was from the burn pits in Iraq for him.
Oh, wow.
And I like to say that it was the worst, I would say worst experience that we've ever had as a couple.
Explain that to me. Wow.
Yeah. So, he had been complaining for a few months that his back was hurting. His back was hurting. He had like a bicycle accident, actually. And, not to sit there and make you squirm, but, he ended up squishing one of his testes, and it started, getting enlarged.
Okay.
And then he started complaining a few months later about his back hurting. And I was like, well, just go to the doctor, the doctor kept on sitting there saying that everything was in his head. He was fine. And I'm like, wow. What in the world? So, it finally got to the point where he ended up in the emergency room. I mean, he decided to go, outside of the VA, and He got diagnosed actually originally with, a kidney tumor, because he had a grapefruit-sized tumor on his kidney. And I was like, of course, because he'd gone to the emergency room, I had the kids with me. And so, I texted him. I was like, hey, what's the doctor say? It's like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, oh, I have kidney cancer. And I'm like, you don't just text somebody that. I was like,
right.
So
wow.
He's like, no, I'm being serious. So of course I call my parents up, drop the kids, the 2 German Shepherd dogs that we have over at their house. And I'm like, I got to get to the hospital. So we get over there, and of course I immediately switch him over to, I took him against, doctor's advice, took him over to the hospital that I worked at, because I knew everybody there.
Correct. Okay.
And, he ended up getting admitted. He spent a week in the hospital, and it was actually, so Marine Corps birthday obviously is coming up November 10th. November 11th is Veterans Day. And then my husband's birthday is November 12th. So he always had a 96 on his birthday in the military.
Okay.
But so that was the week actually that we got the diagnosis of testicular cancer. And so we spent the week together in the hospital, and we found out, that we really didn't know how to communicate with one another. I've been so focused on work, he'd been focused on work, or we'd be focused on the kids. But like as a couple, as a just me and him, like we were sitting there like having to relearn how to talk to one another. And, at that point, it's like we had a looming diagnosis over our head. We didn't know what was going to be going on. He was getting ready to go in for an orchiotomy. And, that's the actual diagnosis of testicular cancer. And that happened to have been, on the Marine Corps birthday, or no, actually it was November 11th is whenever he had that. So not the best Veterans Day, but, but, our focus was getting, healing. And, of course we go over there and we didn't have anything. So I asked my mom, I was like, can you go pick up some clothes for me, bring it back to the hospital and everything. So being the dutiful, wonderful mother that she is, she did that. But I don't know if she decided to play some jokes on us or whatnot. But so I asked her some fuzzy socks, and she comes in and she brings me some, fuzzy socks. So we're sitting there like hanging out in the hospital bed. My feet's propped up on the bed. My husband's looking at them. He's like, that's offensive. And I'm like, what's offensive now? Well, it had a nutcracker on it and it said crushed it. And for him going for testicular cancer,
laughter is beautiful.
It was. And so, throughout the entire journey, and I mean, November is whenever he went in for, the actual, the surgery. And then we started chemo pretty quickly afterward. It was in December. And February is when everything was done. But throughout that entire time, we were laughing, we were crying, but laughter was really the key. And we really connected again. It was probably like I said, it was the best, worst experience of our lives, because we were able to reconnect as a couple. We laughed so much. And now it's like, we decided that, hey, you know what, this is fun. We love our life, but we focus way too much on work. I love helping people. Absolutely love helping people, but you can't help somebody if you can't, you don't help yourself,
Correct.
And so that human factor that I was missing as a couple, really kind of solidified our relationship. So, I will say we still argue like most couples do.
Correct.
But for the most part, we'll sit there and be like, whatever, let's go do something fun. So there's a lot more family time included now.
Wow, it's amazing. I tell people, laughter is, I don't care what nobody says, it is a beautiful thing. Some of the car videos y'all see me and my wife do, it comes from an argument.
It does. It really
comes
does.
from a disagreement. We be like, hey, that's a video. Some people done went through that. You have to learn how to laugh through something, because laughter, you can cry while you laughing. It's just a beautiful thing that God has given for us to have. So you left the joined the Marines, left the Marines, went to Jacksonville, North Carolina, then left Jacksonville, North Carolina, went to Illinois. Once you left Illinois, you moved back to Jacksonville, but this was a different Jacksonville, Jacksonville, Florida.
Yes. Yeah.
So what made you go, besides the sun, the sand, and the water, what made you go back to, what made you go to Florida?
Yeah. So, it kind of actually goes back to my husband's diagnosis. Honestly, Illinois was we had such a wonderful community and everything there. My parents had moved to Illinois too. And so, it was the first time that we'd been back in the same time zone. But, my husband and I were just, we kind of looked at Illinois as this is where a big significant trauma happened, his cancer, not to mention it gets really cold in Illinois.
Yeah.
What some people don't realize is after you go through chemo, your body changes on so many different levels. And so he was struggling with keeping, body temperature. And so I
Okay.
was like, you know what, we go to Universal all the time, in Orlando, that's our happy place. In fact, that's where we did our post-cancer vacation. And my
Okay.
daughter, she graduated high school. So we took her boyfriend, the whole family. We went to Universal. We're like, we don't want to live in Orlando. It's like a gross armpit of Florida, so it's always hot, it's always muggy,
Yeah.
but we decided that we were going to move to Florida. And so I was like, I went into my boss's office after talking to my parents, and I was like, hey, we're going to move to Florida. And of course they didn't believe us at first. They're like,
Correct.
yeah,
Okay.
whatever, do you have a job? And I'm like, no. And they're like, you're just going to move to Florida. I was like,
You are very, very adventurous, I see.
Yes, absolutely
Yeah.
are. We absolutely are. And so, my husband started gutting our property, our house, to be able to sell it. He completely remodeled that by himself. I destroyed some things, and then he told me I can't pay it again. But he was in the process of doing that, and I was sitting there telling my mom, I was like, we're moving to Florida. Like, this is what we're gonna do. And she was like, well, where are you gonna move? And I was like, I don't, we haven't figured that out yet, but we're gonna move to Florida. It's
Wow.
gonna be
I
close
love
enough
it.
that we can drive to Orlando. So I started looking for a few different jobs. Wounded Warrior Project was here in Jacksonville. And then, I started getting some prospects, started doing some interviewing. Casey finished up the house. And so, at this point, it was like February, March timeframe. I go into my boss's office. I was like, after Memorial Day, I'm leaving and I'm going to be moving to Florida. And they're like, why? You got another job? And I'm like, no,
No.
I'm moving to Florida. And so, in April, we actually put our house, or actually it was like March, April time, we put our house on the market, and we drove down to Green Cove Springs, Florida, which is right outside of, Jacksonville.
Okay.
And, as I was, at the, we're in a new subdivision. So I was at the sales office, one of the job prospects that I had was the UF Health Haley Brain Wellness Program. My now boss calls me, offers me a job as I'm there,
Wow.
and I was like, oh, this is a sign. So of course I call my loan officer up and I'm like, hey, I got a job now, and
I'm
we were
sure
able,
he or she was happy. Like,
oh,
whew.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so we were able to, get our dream home. And, that weekend I went in the first house. I was like, that has a soaking tub. I want that one. I don't care about the rest of it. And that was the selling point for me. And then that same weekend we had like 10 offers on our house, so I
Wow.
felt like everything kind of,
Correct.
basically just kind of came together.
Wow. So you're doing all this while you are navigating your TBI and your therapy and your
Yeah.
PTSD. And I love it that you kept going. You didn't stop. You didn't allow that to stop you.
Nope, absolutely not. Can't.
Wow. Now, you also said in Jacksonville, you and your husband found an unbreakable bond.
We did. Yeah.
Explain that one to me.
So I will say, moving across the country just on the whim,
Oh, yeah.
that's just how we are. We wanted that stability, but it was hard.
Correct.
I
Okay.
will sit there and say, because, we actually, so by the time that we sold our house, I still had a week left, because I'm very faithful whenever it comes to my word and everything. I don't like break it. And so I told my boss, in Illinois, that I will stay until the Soldier Field 10 miler, which is Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
And then after that, I'm gone, like that's it. Well, our house had sold. So I was living with my parents for about a week and a half.
Okay.
And, we had to purchase the home, like he had to go and like sign for it. And how my husband and I work, every other home that we buy is our VA home loan. And so technically it was my turn to buy
Okay.
the house. He had to sign basically for my part, of it. And it's not just like a fun signature with a power of attorney. Like, you have to write out a whole sentence,
Okay.
on like 5,000 documents. And then he has to sign his name, and it's the same thing with the initials, and you have to sign like 1 million documents basically. And so he told me, he was like, you were lucky that I love you. Cause he was like, I'm never doing this again. Cause it took him like, hours to be able to sign all these documents. Like, everybody else is already done. They're just waiting for him to finish signing my name.
Wow.
And so that was just kind of like one of those, like, okay, tick, here we go. I absolutely love you. And I can't believe that you did this, but you were never doing this to me again. But what really made it, for us is that, I love work. Like I said, I love working. I love helping people. I love what I do. But I love my family more. And it took me a long time to be able to realize that. And my husband, like, he has to set me straight, because how my TBI is, how my PTS is. I will say that I focus so much on work, and it is easy for me to sit there and just spend all the day at the office or going out and meeting people or helping people, whenever it comes to their own TBI. There's a lot of things that I'm involved in, but he's my ground. Like he's the person that brings me back, and he's like, okay. And he'll sit there and he'll tell anybody. He was like, I'm not going to that party with Ashton. She's going to talk to everybody. I'm going to be off in the corner and I'm going to be bored. So a lot of the times, people will sit there and think that I'm like, basically, completely alone, that I don't, that I'm not married. And I'm like, no, I have this mythical husband. His name is Casey. Here's a photo of him.
And you don't mind. There's one thing about you. You don't mind striking up a conversation, but that's a good thing, because you never know resources. You never know who you might, and being at Mick when there's everybody there.
Yes, absolutely. That's how I met you.
That's it.
I liked what you were saying on your, when you were on stage, kind of your thing. And I was like, I gotta talk to Bernard. So
wow.
Since I saw you free, I
yeah. Wow. I was like, oh, okay. No, let me stop. So tell me a little bit about the Alliance Action. I mean, you work for the Avalon Action Alliance group, correct?
So we're one of 7 TBI partners under the Avalon Action Alliance. So
okay.
I actually work for the University of Florida Health, Leon L. Haley Brain Wellness Program. So
got it.
And they're one of 7 TBI clinics under the Avalon Action Alliance. So Avalon, they're actually, funded by Bernie Marcus and Arthur Blank, who are the founders of Home Depot. And their goal really is to be able to, help improve the behavioral health, among our military veterans and first responders. And so they created this alliance, or, help kind of form this alliance with the sole focus to basically bridge those gaps, in care. So, I mean, I get my care at the VA. I have private insurance, but then I also have all these different resources like the Avalon Action Alliance, because I realize that not everybody is like me. Not everybody can access the VA healthcare. Or they trust the VA healthcare. And I think that there's a lot that, could be said, with all these different programs, but with our community and our resources, we spend a lot of time just working together, to help veterans, be able to not have a lapse in care. And so the Avalon Action Alliance has been gracious to fund our program for 5 years. And we're able to, basically reduce those barriers into care, whenever it comes to traumatic brain injury. And so veterans that have, ever hit their head at any point in their life, or, and I like to sit there and say, because I didn't know this, shoulder fired weapons. We did a lot of that in the military.
Correct.
That sits there. I mean, it's right next to you. I mean, it's right
Correct.
in your shoulder, so close there, or the door breachers, or those that, are on the grenade range, all these different things can impact your brain and cause symptoms that a lot of people go undiagnosed with, because it is one of the leading undiagnosed traumas that are out there, because it's invisible. In the military, we like to sit there and say, "Oh, I'm fine." They need.
That's it.
Somebody else needs it more than me, and so all the time.
I've heard that so many times, and so many spouses that come to me and be like, "He needs it. He needs it." Or she.
We get that all the time too. It's usually the spouses that come up and talk to me. They hear me talk, and they're like. You know what? I think my husband, and they sit there and they throw themselves right up under the bus.
That's right.
My husband did the same thing. My daughter did the same thing, because we're not going to sit there and ask for help ourselves a lot of the time. No. Unless something is like, happening in your world, whether it's, and we get this too, where, people are starting to kind of go towards that rock bottom, they're losing their job, their spouse, their family's mad at them, they're, maybe getting involved with vet court because, they had a DUI because they're self-medicating. We get this a lot of the time, and I'm all about, prevention versus intervention. It's so much easier to help somebody when they're kind of, at the forefront and they have a support system. And so I go around and I sit there and I talk to people about, getting care. I'll sit there and say, hey, like I almost lost everything. I almost lost my family, and it wasn't easy sitting there asking for help, mainly because my husband was sitting there like, you need help. My daughter said, you need help. And I'm like, well, I guess I need help, so.
And that's the key when someone loves you and they want the best for you, and they're telling you, hey, you need to go talk to somebody.
Oh, absolutely.
Just no more than a couple of months ago, my wife told me, she said, baby, you need to go to the vet center and talk to someone. Because when life deals you stressors and this is a new stressor may be coming up in your life. Like, I need to know how to handle this.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn from my therapist what a word empath, but I have to have empath with boundaries.
Oh, good one. Yeah.
An empath is taking on other people's issues, and now you got all the pressure and all the anxiety on you, but you got to have boundaries. And I see that your husband is like your boundary maker.
He is. He is. I like to say yes to everything.
Right. Because we want to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you start realizing that, you're starting to get drained,
Correct.
and well, I mean, I don't realize that. I'm like, I'm Marine. I'm going to go for it.
Correct.
He, on the other hand, he was like, I'm having to deal with your crazy butt. Like, let's not. And I'm like, I'm going to say no for a minute, So he's been great. And we actually offer, those same skill sets that you learned at the vet center. We offer the same things here at our clinic too. And that's amazing because, so many people are like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. They lost their purpose, and so they're just sitting there, taking on so much. And, it can be a struggle for them, the whole family, their friends, their work, colleagues, all of that. And so with our program, we're reducing those barriers to care. So, if somebody's ever hit their head, or, they're having some of those symptoms that, are prone of TBI, I sit there and say, hey, give me a call, give our office a call, and, or reach out to the Avalon Action Alliance, we'll find a place for you. But we do a lot more than just the, like basically just taking care of the medical bills as well. We're covering the airfare, the lodging, the food, so whoever is getting treatment is 100% focused on that treatment, so there's no outside. We have a whole alliance that we could sit there and work with. And we're actually reducing the symptoms of traumatic brain injury, of post-traumatic stress, within the Avalon Action Alliance. You also have the substance use program. So there's a lot that's happening, within our alliance. And we're sitting there, Sharon, we don't care about the, like, oh, this is my patient, so I'm going to get the funds from this one. No, if somebody is better suited for a different program, we're going to sit there and refer them over because, it's veteran first.
Wow. So, and you don't have to be in Florida. You can be anywhere and get tapped in.
Yeah, we have, we have veterans coming from all over the place. And that's what's great about having 7 TBI centers under the Alliance. They're kind of sporadically, around the U.S. And then we're actually looking to be able to add on another couple as well. So our goal is to be in all 50 states, but, right now there's 7, hopefully going to be 8 soon. And then, we can really be able to help save veterans' lives, because that's exactly what we're doing.
Wow. Listen, y'all, I have had Miss Ashton Kroner on today. She is doing some great things. I like y'all slogan. This is y'all slogan. Together, we connect our nation's veterans and first responders to life-changing care. Yeah. And that's what you are doing. And I am great. It's great that I know you, because now you are like a resource.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So if people wanted to reach out to you, how could they reach out to you?
Yeah, so it's me personally.
Yeah, well, somebody was, I heard the podcast, I heard the video, but I want to, as they say, jump in her DMs or something like that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's more on the professional side. So we are, I will say, I am always looking for, people to team up with to help fundraise, because this is an expensive program. So hit me up on LinkedIn on that one, but just look for Ashton Kroner. It's super easy. I made myself all public. And then if you are interested in being able to send me an email, ashton.kroner@jax.ufl.edu. So I can, I'll sit there and send that over to you, Bernard, for being able to put that out. But
correct.
I make it easy. Please reach out to me if you have any questions about the program. You need resources. I have over 2,000 that I've collaborated with over the last couple of years. So, and they've been vetted. They're great resources for everybody.
Wow. Listen, I always like to leave with the person or my guest giving or some words of wisdom to that person who feel like they can't go on, who feel like I'm at my last end. What would you say to that person?
I go back to boot camp, AT&T, reach out and touch somebody, whenever you're hiking, you're on that, that hump, and you're sitting there like hating life. Cause I had a lot of those. I was a ground Marine. you got to reach out, AT&T, reach out, touch somebody, sit there, make that call, shoot a message, because we would rather have that conversation while you're here versus going to your funeral. That's what it is.
Wow. Thank you, Ashton. You have been great. Thank you for the resources. And y'all, if you want to find out more about this young lady, Ashton Kroner, ASHTON, Kroner, KRONER. Find out more about her. Ashton, you are released from the stigma-free zone. Thank you.
Thank you.